A critical hurricane is approaching. Flooding and tornadoes are devastating. Wildfires are spreading everywhere. We provide fast and accurate updates. Your Hurricane and Storm Center.
Hello, and welcome to Hurricane and Storm Center. Thank you for joining us for the latest updates on severe weather, tropical systems, dangerous seas, and major atmospheric developments around the world. In this report, we are taking a close look at weather conditions across waters under U.S. jurisdiction and nearby marine zones tonight, through early Friday morning, and throughout June 26, 2026. We will also examine the potential for tropical cyclone development through the end of July, the latest trends involving El Niño, and the key safety precautions that fishermen, cargo vessels, cruise ships, and coastal communities should keep in mind. To begin, the marine weather pattern around the United States remains active and deserves close attention. The 2026 Atlantic hurricane season is now underway, and although the climatological peak is still months away, late June and July are important periods for monitoring every tropical disturbance. A weak low-pressure area, a tropical wave, a stalled boundary, or a disturbance moving westward from Africa can become a more organized tropical system if it encounters warm water, abundant moisture, and favorable upper-level winds. Across the Atlantic basin, there is no active tropical cyclone currently posing a direct threat to the U.S. coastline. However, forecasters are closely watching several tropical waves moving westward across the Atlantic. One tropical wave over the eastern Atlantic between Africa and the Lesser Antilles is producing scattered showers and thunderstorms. This system remains poorly organized at this time, with no well-defined closed circulation, but it is another sign that the tropical assembly line across the Atlantic is beginning to become more active. Another tropical wave is moving toward the eastern Caribbean. Tonight and Friday, this feature may bring periods of showers and thunderstorms to parts of the eastern Caribbean, including waters near Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and areas south of Hispaniola. Mariners should be prepared for sudden thunderstorm wind gusts, frequent lightning, heavy rain that sharply reduces visibility, and rapidly building seas near stronger cells. Across the northern Caribbean, trade winds remain one of the primary weather concerns. The south-central Caribbean, especially waters offshore of Colombia and Venezuela and portions of the waters south of Jamaica, may continue to experience moderate to fresh easterly to northeasterly winds. During the nighttime hours, winds may strengthen further in some areas, occasionally approaching near gale conditions offshore of Colombia. Seas may become rough, creating hazardous conditions for small fishing boats, lightly loaded vessels, and recreational marine traffic. In the Gulf of Mexico, also referred to as the Gulf of America in some current U.S. weather products, conditions are not completely quiet. A frontal boundary or weak trough is extending across northern Florida, the Florida Big Bend region, and toward the southern Mississippi Valley. This feature is continuing to trigger scattered showers and thunderstorms over the northeastern Gulf. Tonight, vessels operating offshore of the Florida Panhandle, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and nearby waters should closely monitor marine radar and weather alerts. Thunderstorms over warm Gulf waters can develop quickly and may produce strong wind gusts, intense lightning, torrential rain, and dangerous visibility reductions. Elsewhere across the Gulf, weak high pressure and an easterly to southeasterly wind pattern are expected to remain in place. Many areas may see relatively manageable sea conditions, but that should not lead to complacency. During the summer months, a passing trough, an increase in tropical moisture, or a developing sea breeze boundary can trigger thunderstorms with little warning, especially during the late afternoon, evening, and overnight hours. The greatest short-term hazards across the Gulf are not expected to come from a major hurricane, but from localized severe thunderstorms, lightning, waterspouts, sudden wind shifts, and rapidly changing seas. Along the U.S. East Coast, from Florida through Georgia, the Carolinas, the Mid-Atlantic, and toward New England, marine weather will continue to be influenced by humid air, weak troughing, and summertime thunderstorm activity. Tonight, scattered showers and thunderstorms may develop near coastal waters from Florida to the Carolinas. Some storms could produce wind gusts hazardous to small craft, particularly during the late afternoon, overnight, and early morning periods.
Offshore wave heights may not be exceptionally high across the entire region, but mariners should remain alert for short-period waves, localized rough seas, lightning, and sudden wind gusts. In the southeastern waters of the United States, particularly offshore Florida and around the Florida Keys, easterly to southeasterly winds may continue to transport tropical moisture northward from the Caribbean. This could support thunderstorm development near the coast, around the Florida Keys, and across waters between Florida and the Bahamas. Cruise ships, fishing vessels, and high-speed marine traffic should avoid navigating too close to rapidly growing thunderstorm towers. Strong outflow winds from thunderstorms can cause sea conditions to deteriorate within minutes. On the U.S. West Coast, waters offshore California are expected to maintain a more typical early summer pattern. Northerly to northwesterly winds may strengthen in the afternoon and evening hours, especially offshore central and northern California. Areas near Point Conception, the Channel Islands, and waters farther north toward northern California may experience moderate to strong winds, creating steep, choppy seas. Small craft operators should use caution, especially during nighttime voyages or early morning hours when marine fog may significantly reduce visibility. Offshore Oregon and Washington, mariners should also remain aware of northwesterly winds, coastal fog, and quickly changing local sea conditions. While no tropical system is expected to affect this region, colder water, strong currents, and wind-driven seas can still create dangerous conditions for smaller fishing vessels. Areas near river mouths, straits, and strong tidal channels may experience confused seas, cross-currents, and rougher conditions than the general forecast suggests. Farther south, waters offshore Baja California in the eastern Pacific remain the most closely watched region for possible tropical development. A former low-pressure area southwest of the southern tip of Baja California is moving quickly westward toward cooler water. Its chances of developing into a tropical depression have decreased significantly. As a result, this particular system is not expected to become a direct threat to Mexico, California, or the southern United States. However, a more important signal is emerging farther east in the eastern Pacific Basin. Forecasters are monitoring the potential for a new low-pressure area to form late this week or early next week. Environmental conditions may become more favorable for gradual development, and the chance of a tropical depression forming during the next 7 days is considered elevated. If the system develops, it is expected to move generally westward to west-northwestward at roughly 10 to 15 miles per hour, likely remaining away from the mainland of Mexico and the United States.
Even so, residents of Hawaii, shipping operators on Pacific routes, and international marine interests should continue monitoring the situation. Systems that form in the eastern Pacific often move westward, and some can enter the central Pacific if they remain organized. Not every system will affect Hawaii directly, but even a distant tropical cyclone can generate long-period swells, dangerous rip currents, and rough seas along major shipping lines. For waters around Hawaii tonight and Friday, the weather pattern will generally be dominated by trade winds. Winds may remain moderate to locally strong through channels between the islands, especially where terrain enhances wind speeds. Seas may be higher along windward shores, while some beaches may face an increased risk of rip currents. Small craft operators, surfers, swimmers, and visitors should check local marine advisories before heading offshore or entering the water. In Alaska, marine conditions remain very different from the tropical and subtropical waters farther south. The Bering Sea, the Gulf of Alaska, and waters near the Aleutian Islands may be influenced by extratropical low-pressure systems, strong winds, fog, and large swells. Summer in Alaska does not mean calm seas. Fishing vessels and cargo ships must remain alert for rapidly changing winds, cold temperatures, dense fog, and long-period waves generated by North Pacific storms. In this region, sea conditions can deteriorate far more quickly than a coastal forecast may suggest. Looking ahead through the end of July, meteorologists expect the risk of tropical cyclone formation to gradually increase across both Atlantic and eastern Pacific basins. In the Atlantic, June is often an early season period when systems can develop in the Gulf of Mexico, the northwestern Caribbean, near Florida, or offshore the southeastern United States. By July, the potential development zone typically expands across the Caribbean Sea, the Gulf of Mexico, the Western Atlantic, and eventually farther east as more tropical waves move off Africa. Experts stress that it is impossible to identify now exactly which storm, if any, may affect the United States. Still, the background ocean and atmospheric conditions are becoming increasingly important. Warm ocean water is one of the main energy sources for tropical cyclones. When sea surface temperatures are high, moisture is abundant, and upper-level wind shear is weak, even a relatively small disturbance can organize more quickly. On the other hand, strong upper-level winds or dry air can disrupt and weaken a developing system. In the eastern Pacific, tropical activity often increases rapidly during June and July. Waters offshore southern Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Baja California are among the regions that require the closest attention. Several named systems have already formed in the eastern Pacific this year, but none has yet intensified into a major hurricane. That does not mean the season will remain quiet. Early season activity can simply be the beginning of a more active period as conditions become increasingly favorable in July and August. One of the most closely watched climate signals is El Niño. According to recent climate assessments, El Niño conditions have developed across the equatorial Pacific and may continue strengthening in the coming months. Sea surface temperatures across the central and eastern equatorial Pacific are running above average. The NINU 3.4 temperature index has remained positive, while warming in the eastern Pacific has been more pronounced. These trends suggest that the ocean atmosphere system is shifting toward an El Niño pattern, rather than La Niña or neutral conditions. El Niño can influence weather patterns around the world in several ways. During the Atlantic hurricane season, El Niño often increases upper-level wind shear across parts of the basin, which can make it more difficult for some storms to organize and intensify. However, that does not mean the United States cannot experience dangerous hurricanes. History has shown that powerful and destructive storms can still form, rapidly intensify, and make landfall during El Niño years. A single hurricane striking a populated coastline can cause major damage regardless of the total number of storms during the season. Across the eastern Pacific and central Pacific, El Niño can alter the location, intensity, and movement of tropical systems. Warmer water and changes in atmospheric circulation may support tropical activity in some regions, but the final outcome still depends on the exact location of warm water, wind shear, moisture, and shorter-term atmospheric patterns. For that reason, meteorologists caution against treating El Niño as a guarantee of either an active or quiet hurricane season. It is one important factor among many. For fishermen and vessel operators, the most important action during this period is to maintain a routine of checking marine forecasts before every departure. Do not focus only on named storms or tropical depressions. Pay close attention to thunderstorm warnings, strong wind advisories, high seas forecasts, waterspout risks, lightning, and reduced visibility. During summer, many marine accidents are caused not by a major hurricane, but a fast-developing thunderstorm, sudden wind gusts, or lightning striking a vessel far from shore. Small fishing boats should inspect engines, communication systems, life jackets, flares, navigation equipment, lights, and emergency supplies. Do not head offshore if the forecast calls for prolonged strong thunderstorms, rapidly increasing winds, or rough seas. If you are already at sea and notice towering dark clouds, frequent lightning, sudden wind shifts, or strong gusts spreading across the water, move away from the storm area as quickly and safely as possible, reduce speed when needed, and contact emergency services or nearby vessels if conditions become dangerous. Larger cargo vessels should pay attention to long-period swells and strong winds across the Caribbean, waters offshore Colombia, the Florida Straits, the Eastern Pacific, and the North Pacific. Swells from distant storms can travel thousands of miles and create dangerous sea conditions even when skies near the vessel appear relatively clear. Shipping routes near Hawaii, Alaska, California, and the Caribbean should be updated frequently with the latest marine charts and forecasts. Coastal residents across the United States, especially in Florida, the Gulf Coast, the Carolinas, Texas, Louisiana, and Hawaii, should begin preparing early for hurricane season. Early preparation does not mean panic. It means checking family communication plans, insurance documents, emergency supplies,
backup power options, drinking water, medications, and evacuation routes before a storm threat develops. Hurricane and Storm Center will continue monitoring every major development across the Atlantic, the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, the Eastern Pacific, Hawaii, Alaska, and all marine areas connected to the United States. Tonight and Friday, June 26th, the leading concerns remain localized severe thunderstorms, wind gusts, lightning, and rough seas across the Caribbean and parts of the southeastern U.S. coastline. Meanwhile, the Eastern Pacific deserves close attention, as a new low-pressure area may develop in the days ahead. From now through the end of July, the possibility of additional tropical depressions and named storms remains very real as the hurricane season begins to show more signs of activity. Stay with Hurricane and Storm Center, turn on notifications, and follow our updates so you do not miss the latest early warnings for hurricanes, heavy rain, tornadoes, dangerous surf, rough seas, and extreme weather events. We wish everyone along the coast and everyone working at sea a safe, prepared, and peaceful day.
Here is the latest nationwide weather update across the United States for tonight and Friday, June 26, 2026. Across the country, the overall weather pattern reflects a typical summer setup, but with several areas facing localized severe weather risks, especially thunderstorms, heavy rain, and strong wind gusts. Eastern and southeastern United States. From Florida through Georgia and the Carolinas, warm and very humid air continues to dominate. Tonight and Friday, scattered showers and thunderstorms are expected, especially along coastal areas. Some storms may become strong during the afternoon and evening hours, producing frequent lightning, heavy downpours, and gusty winds. The Florida Keys and the Florida Straits should be closely monitored for rapidly developing marine thunderstorms over warm waters. Gulf Coast states. Across Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle, the main concern remains scattered to locally strong thunderstorms. These systems can quickly develop over the Gulf of Mexico and move inland, bringing short bursts of heavy rain, strong wind gusts, and isolated severe weather threats, including brief tornado potential. Nighttime thunderstorms over coastal waters also remain possible. Central United States. Across the plains and Midwest, including Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, warm and unstable air will support scattered thunderstorms. Some of these storms may become strong during the late afternoon and evening hours, producing damaging wind gusts, localized flooding, and frequent lightning. Conditions remain typical of a summer storm pattern, but still require caution due to rapid storm development. Western United States. Much of California, Nevada, Arizona, and Utah will continue to experience hot and dry conditions, especially in inland areas. However, isolated thunderstorms may develop over higher terrain during the afternoon and evening, particularly in eastern California and the desert southwest. Along the California coastline, northwesterly winds will strengthen during the late afternoon, leading to choppy seas in areas of dense marine fog that may reduce visibility. Pacific Northwest, Oregon, and Washington. Cooler and more stable conditions will dominate, with widespread marine clouds and coastal fog. Northwesterly winds remain steady, but generally not hazardous on land. Offshore waters may still experience localized rough seas and cross swells, especially in exposed coastal zones. Northern United States and the Great Lakes region. Weather conditions remain relatively stable overall, though scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms are still possible. Temperatures are more moderate compared to the southern states, but humidity levels are sufficient to support brief storm development in some areas. Alaska. Marine weather remains active across the Gulf of Alaska and the Bering Sea, influenced by strong low-pressure systems. Mariners should expect strong winds, dense fog, and large swells. Conditions may deteriorate rapidly, especially in offshore waters and near the Aleutian Islands. Hawaii. Trade winds remain the dominant feature, producing moderate to locally strong winds between the islands. Seas will be choppy at times, especially in windward waters. Elevated surf and rip current risks continue along exposed beaches, requiring caution for swimmers and surfers.
Overall 24-hour hazard outlook. Highest risk, scattered severe thunderstorms across the eastern U.S., Gulf Coast, and Midwest. Moderate risk, isolated mountain thunderstorms in the western U.S. Marine risk, thunderstorm-related hazards in the Gulf of Mexico and Florida Straits. Lower risk, Pacific Northwest and Northern Plains. General assessment. No organized tropical cyclone is currently impacting the United States. However, the summer atmosphere remains highly unstable, meaning even small disturbances can rapidly develop into strong thunderstorms or localized severe weather events, especially over warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico and adjacent coastal regions. Hurricane and Storm Center will continue monitoring all severe weather developments across the United States, including thunderstorms, flooding rainfall, lightning hazards, and marine threats. Stay tuned for the latest updates. Stay safe and remain weather aware.